Welcome food fans, picky eaters, the flavor curious, and everyone in between. Nothing makes good food better than good conversation. And your table is ready. Come right this way to the Food for Thoughtcast with your host, Melissa Reagan. But you can call her Chef. All right, let's get this episode started.
Hey there, food fans. Today I'm talking to comedian Zakary Haines as we explore the link between humor and food. I hope you enjoy.
Hi, Zach. Welcome to the Food for Thoughtcast. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Everybody, welcome back to the Food for Thoughtcast with me, your host, Melissa Reagan. But as always, you can call me Chef. Zach, here is our guest today. I'm going to ask you the same thing I ask of all of our guests. What is the most amazing thing that you either ate or cooked this week?
This week? That's a tough one, but I had a pretty healthy meal actually. So what I did is I cooked some chicken, but I marinated it in a couple of days in what is known as a Cornell sauce actually. It's
Nice.
like from upstate New York. It's like a type of barbecue sauce. It's kind of a bit more of a white sauce, very vinegary in a way, but also has a lot of great other flavors. I just baked that in the oven. I had some rice and broccoli with it too, and that's really it. That was the best thing I cooked all week, and I feel
That
very
sounds
proud of
amazing.
it was pretty good. I put I'm in DC, and there's this thing here called mumbo sauce, which is actually really good, and I put some of that on the broccoli, and it added a little more kick to it. So
Is that something you make, like a local item, or is that something you buy?
it's local to DC, but I bought it. I usually buy it. I'm trying to
Okay.
find better mumbo sauce at this point. So I'm hoping
All
people in
right.
DC listen.
So Mumbo, is that like Dumbo with an M at the beginning?
I think so. I can't spell it without looking at it right now.
Sure.
It's so new. It's just like I'm like, I don't know how to spell this. It's just mumbo sauce.
Right. Oh, I have to know more about this barbecue sauce because I've got a barbecue episode coming up. So, what are the other flavors in this sauce besides vinegar? Because I've never heard of this.
Oh my god! Now I'm gonna have to look this up. I have the bottle. But I am just feeling very lazy today.
That's okay. We all have those days.
Give me 1 second. I do have I'm pulling up the recipe. I have to. Oh my god! Why is my phone fighting me? No, phone. We look up food all the time. It is a basic combination of like some vinegar, some oil, some seasoning mixed in with it, a little bit of apple. I think it's apple vinegar mixed in too. So
Yeah.
it says barbecue on it, but like you use it in a barbecue sense. Like it's not a barbecue sauce.
Like a marinade then.
But it's a marinade. Like you would
Got it.
use it for a barbecue. It's a fantastic thing. It's local to upstate New York, especially the central New York region down by where Cornell is and stuff. So
Oh, I love that. I'm going to have to give it a shot. That's awesome. Well, tell us where you're from, Zach.
so I'm originally from Syracuse, New York. That's in upstate New York. I keep referencing that. But now I'm down in the DC area. I'm down near Washington, DC, about 20 minutes or so from the DC line. So that's where I am now. I moved down for work and I've been here since like 2021. So
That's amazing. How did you get into food?
I'm a big guy, so food has always been very important to me. But I actually really didn't get into food until college because I worked in a dining hall at college, and then I kind of became better about making food and stuff. Because like
Nice.
when you start working in a dining hall, you kind of have to care a little bit about what you're doing with the food and stuff. Granted, most of it's not seasoned or anything. And so after that, I started trying to cook for myself and going that way. And I did a couple catering gigs in between that too. But I really got into it more when the pandemic kicked off because I was
Sure.
home all the time and I had nothing else to do. So I'm just like, you know what? Let me cook some, do something different, because like when you're in quarantine, you got to do something to occupy your mind.
Well,
Otherwise,
right. And we all had the time. There was a lot of, sourdough baking going on and cookie decorating and all sorts of just getting out of comfort zones during that
yeah.
time. Kind
So
of literally, right? And then physically.
yeah. So like I was actually living with my grandparents when this happened, and my grandma was like going back to making bread and stuff. Meanwhile, I'm in the kitchen later trying not to burn food.
Yeah, I get it. Everybody has to start somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of like good cooks in my family and stuff, even if they weren't professional. Like there's a lot of people who know how to cook, so I got some of that from them as well. But I worked in a deli in 2020 as well, and that's where more cooking came to me as well. Like I was able to like make sandwiches and stuff, also work on fried food, and then I tried different things, messed around with stuff, and then really like when I moved down here to DC in 2021, that's when like my cooking really took off, and then I had all these skills and experiences and stuff, so I knew what I was making and I could make my own menu, and that made it a lot easier to learn how to cook. And I made mistakes along the way, but I didn't die from those mistakes, so I think I'm doing an all right job.
And hopefully nobody else died either.
Nope. Nobody has died from my cooking as far as I know.
You one of those like the placard, like where you flip the cards where it says like 0 days since somebody died from Zach's cooking.
Yeah, it's like 0 days without incident. It's like, gotta put it back.
Right. Now we have to flip it over again.
It's actually kind of weird because like when I cook for my friends are always like, hey, so when are you making more? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, we want more food. So
that's awesome.
I don't share my food often, but when I share it, it's usually really good. Like I made mac and cheese at one point when I first moved down here, and then I had my one friend, he's like, so when are you doing it again? And I'm like, that took a lot of work. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, mac and cheese is really, it's nothing small. It's a process. It can definitely be very, very elaborate if you wish it to be.
Yeah, especially like I didn't make the noodles, but everything else I kind of made. I made cheese sauce. I got a bunch of cheeses and stuff. Now I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
Yeah, this always happens when guests come on. We always start talking about food and get super hungry. Now you said you didn't make the noodles. I'm not even going to feign any disappointment over here. If you had an extruder at your house and you were making elbow macaronis, I would be like, I'm going to fly there. I have to be there. That's crazy town.
I've never actually made my own noodles, but I'm okay with that because I'm like, I feel like I would mess that up. I've seen the process, but I'm like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. It looks so easy, but yeah, I will find a way to screw it up.
I've messed up plenty of times myself. I've made plenty of fettuccine that would sink like a rock to the bottom of your stomach. So it's completely possible to mess that up. The people that are really good at it make it look really easy, kind of as with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you said you worked in a deli and you were working in a food hall. Yep. And some on the fry as well, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about the comedy that you find in kitchens?
Here's the thing about working in like kitchens and stuff. What I've learned and what I've talked with people about who worked in other kitchens, it's that you got to have a good sense of humor because that could get really stressful really quickly, especially like when you're getting rushed or you get like a dinner rush or you get a bunch of people coming in for lunch all of a sudden. Then you feel that stress. So I think finding comedy is just having jokes with your coworkers and being able to work through the busy times and stuff, but also knowing when to like take a moment to chill. Like I know most people worked in kitchens and I've done this too. If you just walked into the walk-in cooler or freezer and you just kind of like sat there disappointed or cried or whatever, I'm there with everyone.
Right. Yeah, my favorite thing to do is go punch like a box of French fries in a freezer. It's very satisfying.
I think I punched like a frozen bag of like soup once. It was just completely frozen. I punched it and it broke it a little bit. I'm like, oh, oops. I didn't want to punch the fries. I'm like, no, I got to grab the fries.
Yeah, I'll typically go for like a bagged item in a high stress moment because I know that I can't really damage it that bad and I'm not going to like break a knuckle on it. But it's so satisfying. I used to keep from throwing a tantrum, I would walk into the walk-in and I would grab the ripest avocado I could find and just launch it at the wall. And I would just watch it splatter. It just kind of like scoot,
Oh.
like just kind of smear down the wall, and it was just enough of that moment, you know.
Yeah, I usually go in and scream, so that's what I do. No one can hear you screaming to walk in.
Exactly, it's like space. The walk-in is
Exactly.
exactly like space. Nobody can hear you scream.
I'm going for a walk-in. Oh, be careful in there. Don't let the
Yeah,
aliens get you.
but kitchens are crazy. Like, I think you even have to develop a dark sense of humor, in my opinion, because there's just so much messed up situations, and we're a different breed, and you really have to have
Mhm.
a thick skin, and you've got to be able to see humor in really, really not funny things.
Oh, absolutely. I kind of already came in with like a pre-built sense of dark humor because I worked at a haunted house before I started working with food, which is like if you work at a haunted house, you will get a dark sense of humor at some point. So walking into a kitchen and people doing dark jokes and they're like, "Oh, I didn't mean to say that." I'm like, "It's cool. I've heard way worse already."
The kitchen is like the arena where everybody's intrusive thoughts come out loud, but nobody thinks twice about it. It's just normal conversation.
Exactly, because like I've had those conversations where we're just joking about something that's really messed up, and then someone's just waiting to get served, and they hear us, and they just stare like a hole through us, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Who are you as a person?" It's like I'm like, "Sorry, I let the intrusive thoughts out."
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times in the kitchen that somebody doesn't know me very well, and I've gotten, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah, especially if it's like a newer person, they're like, What's wrong?" It's like, "Oh, is this your first time?"
Is this your first day? Who hurt you?
Who?
Is typically the response.
It's always something. It's like, "What? Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is fine. This is totally fine." And then by the end of the week, they're joking along with us. It's like, "See, now you get it."
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, hey, I need you to come over to the dark side, and you can start developing all these unhealthy defense mechanisms that we all already have, all
Hmm.
these coping things that we do.
We all gotta have a coping mechanism. None of them said they had to be positive ones.
Exactly. Especially not in this business. It's
Mm-mm.
rough. It can be rough there.
It can be. I've seen some really rough ones, especially like working in that deli in 2020. There were some rough spots there because on top of all the food prep and stuff, you also have COVID protocols and new rules and things changing, and it was a lot. I had a lot of like you had to develop a lot of coping mechanisms at that point, not just for the stress of working in a kitchen environment, but also on top of that, you got to worry about COVID and stuff too.
Yeah, it was crazy. There was that 2 month period before they kind of had the studies that came out that were like, hey, listen, you really can't get COVID through like touching other people's food, right? But
Yeah.
you know, before that they didn't know. And so in kitchens, it was crazy, right? Because you had not only the health department stuff, and then you had whatever standards of the place that you worked for that you had to maintain. And then you had all these other crazy rules. And it almost felt like, at least to me, how can I lighten the mood without letting people know that or without it appearing that I don't take this seriously, but also like staying sane. Like, I have to bring some humor into this.
Exactly. That's like a big thing too. It's like because people were kind of tense about it. They're moving around. Like they get a little jittery all of a sudden when you're like trying to hand them their food and they're very cautious about COVID. And I would sometimes I just light in the mood, be like, it's all right. The food's not gonna bite. Like that's not what you should worry about. Like I'd always like bring
Right.
it back to the product. I think one I think one time someone's like super worried that wearing gloves and stuff, and I'll be like, ma'am, listen, you can eat off this counter right now. I just cleaned it. I guarantee there's no COVID on it whatsoever.
Right.
Why I do something like that. It's like, look, I will eat off this counter right now. Like I I will literally hold my lunch over the counter.
Yeah. I think it just took a little bit of a human touch. And I think that's where like comedy can really unite people too. It's like a great common ground for people. I feel that way about food as well, but I think that there's some sort of indelible connection between the two. It's all
There,
storytelling when you break it down.
it's definitely is because like you need to kind of break that tension a little bit. I think there's like an unwritten tension between someone making your food and you ordering your food. So if you're making the food like in a deli or like a like an assembly line type style. You know, you kind of need to break it a little bit so they know that, like, all right, this person seems cool. They know what they're doing. So I'm just going to go along with it and place my order. Cause I definitely had times where it's like I go to order food at, like, I don't know, some like assembly line place, and the person's super nervous. I'm like, are you okay? Are you gonna make it through it? They'd be like, do you want the steak? And I'm like, yes, I want the steak. Like, once in a while, I'll be like, say it with your chest.
There's definitely a trust there.
Hmm.
I'll never forget the day. This is kind of off topic, but there was one Saturday morning several years ago. I was sitting in my living room in Austin, where I lived at the time, and some Jehovah's Witnesses came to the door, and they were so timid. I thought they were going to cry, and I was like, "Listen, I'm not interested, but you can't be scared. Like, if you really believe it, then you got to act like you believe it, and you just got to be confident." I mean, I just wanted to hug them. It was just like, wow, why are you so scared right now?
Did you have deviled eggs? Relax, the devil's in the eggs.
The devil's in the eggs.
Yeah.
The details and the eggs.
Details, eggs.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, like you gotta have that tension. I always try to build a little bit of trust. It's like I always try to bring a friendly attitude when I was making food. It's like, hey, what can I get for you? Or like, what are you looking to get? Like stuff like that. Like
Sure.
even just being friendly towards people is like good enough.
Yeah, I think we're getting back there.
Yeah,
I really think we are.
I
think it's gonna come around full circle.
it's taken a little bit because like everybody's out of quarantine now, and they're like, hey, the pandemic's coming towards the end of heading towards the endemic, and I think it's getting back to it now because like a lot of restaurants are starting to like really pick back up to almost what they were before. But also on top of that, there's new places popping up now that wouldn't exist because if COVID not happened, some of these places got booted out, but then new places are coming in and they're starting to thrive too because they understand the pandemic already. So
Well, the amount of food businesses born out of people taking a risk because they had nothing but time and really nothing to lose, but they also had nowhere else to be is insane. Like the amount of cottage home food businesses and the amount of like TikTok food entities and things like that were born out of this time is like, it's amazing. It's amazing to see what the power of the human spirit can achieve.
yeah, because like a lot of people got laid off because of the pandemic and stuff, and they're like, they're like, this is an opportunity to try something new or try something I've always wanted. And if not now, then when? Because now you have this opportunity. You're getting paid to stay home.
Absolutely.
Not a lot of business is going on. Now's the chance to do it. And like people got really famous through TikTok sometimes, and now they're doing all these orders and stuff, which is like really cool to see.
Yeah, it's amazing. Where you said you worked in a food hall, I want to know if that gave you any respect for like portion sizes. Like I just imagine that was the scale on which you had to cook was probably mind blowing at first. No?
Yeah, because like when working in like a college food hall or whatever, like most of the scoops and stuff are already to that measurement, or they'll tell you what the measurement is. So like if it's like chicken tenders, it'll be on the back of a sheet of the menu. It'll be like, all right, 4 tenders to a person or 3 tenders to a person, something like that. But you know, if you're friends with someone or you have a crush in college, sometimes you might give them a few extra. I remember I was crushing on this one girl that was in my dorm hall, in my dorm actually, and I saw her come up to grab food for breakfast, and she and the portion size was like 2 sausage links, and she's like, really, just 2? So I just gave her 2 more, and I'm like, there you go. It never led to anything, but I was very corruptible. I just look around. It's like there's no managers, no one's looking. It's just like, oh wow, how did that get there? Oopsies.
You think there's like a breakfast meat mafia or like somebody watching?
I worked in one of the dining halls that was like super strict on portion sizes and stuff. Like it was infamous for not giving out the like most portions possible.
Sure.
So, but I would just look around. I just look really quick. I make it non-conspicuous, and then I just drop some more food. So like if I had a friend coming through and it's like chicken patty day or whatever, and they're like, oh, I want 2. It's like, you know, how meerkats just kind of pop their heads up and just look around, or groundhogs or whatever. I kind of did that. I just popped my head up. I'm like, All right, here's a note. Here's another one. Enjoy it on me.
You were the rodent of the college food hall
A
food
lot of us
operation.
were because we didn't like our managers, so it's just like, oh, it was like it almost became Les Mis Burrells, you know? It's
Oh my
like
gosh.
we're giving back to the students, and they're like, oh wow, we're going through so much food. We need more food. So then we would get more food and then just give out more food, and we'd sneak out a lot of food as well. Like
That's you know why? Because everybody's hungry for education. That's why.
yeah, and it's like it's college too. A lot of us are broke. Like I didn't realize like how broke I was until like I just started a new job in February. And then I'm like, man, I came a long way like 5 years ago. And then I was looking back at college. I'm like, oh, I had zero money. How did I go out every weekend?
Sometimes I'll see like food halls or college cafeteria type situations depicted in television and movies, and it'll make me a little bit sad for my own experience because since I went to a culinary school, there weren't dorms and there wasn't anything like that. And so it'd be like, what did you eat at school today? Well, I ate half a pecan pie and my own tears.
At least you had the pecan pie.
Right?
What'd you eat today? Well, I found a granola bar.
I broke this sauce 3 times in a row and I feasted on my own failure. Then I went home and I had like a 55-cent pack of ramen.
Oh my.
Because culinary school's freaking expensive.
It is. It is. I've seen the prices and I'm like, oh, geez.
There's a lot to be gleaned in like real life experiences for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. What did you do at the deli?
So the deli was a little weird. I've nicknamed it a country bodega, which is the only way to describe the store. And in fact, I made a little like mini TikTok series out of it that people really like. But the way to describe the store is in upstate New York around the Finger Lakes region. I worked at this convenience store and it was very convenient for a lot of things. So on top of the deli portion, you had a part that was just a hardware store and it had a lot of stuff in there. It had things like rope, boat batteries, stuff you could do repairs with.
Murder weapons? Murder weapons?
Well, supposedly. There's a lot of ways to kill. There's a lot of ways to kill a man, but and then so the back part was the deli. The middle part was this like hardware general goods part, and then in the front was like all the snacks and beer and alcohol and like tobacco and lottery tickets. And then there was a gas station part of it too. It was just this all one stop, mostly for all these summer people or locals who just don't want to go into town. So the only way to describe it, my ex described it as a country bodega because like for people familiar with New York City, the bodega is pretty important down in New York City, but
it is.
And it has everything. I've been to a few bodegas where you can literally get anything.
Yeah, as is the 24-hour deli.
Exactly. Exactly. But with this country bodega, it was basically it's a convenience store. It's a, like convenience general hardware store. It just had everything. You could walk out with fried food, a bunch of beer, and some nuts and bolts to fix you whatever you're working on. It was fantastic.
It's like a tiny Walmart.
It kind of was. We had tie-dye shirts as uniforms, which was actually pretty cool. So I think it's better than a Walmart.
That's amazing.
It's better than a Walmart. But this deli was really cool. My uncle was the one who actually told me to apply for it because it was like I was looking for jobs because I was like laid off from like this contract position I got out of college. And so I was looking for work for like 2 months. And then my uncle's like, you could just work at the deli that's like 10 minutes from the house. And I'm like, I probably should actually. And then next thing you know, I'm working at this deli and it was pretty good working there because like it had a lot of stuff in it. Had a lot of fried food sandwiches. We also had an ice cream machine and did a bunch of ice cream stuff too.
Like homemade ice creams or like a soft serve dispensing?
It's like a soft serve dispense, but we got it from a local company. I'm trying to remember who we got it from, but it's like a local company that like is pretty famous in central New York. But I would actually make a lot of my tip money through ice cream sales than anything else that I did that day. So if I'm the only one back there working, I can make like $50 to $60 just based on ice cream alone. especially if it's like July and August. I think in one weekend I made like almost $200 in tips.
That's amazing.
It was. It just was. And like I had to like we made 200. Like I had to split that, but like it was like I got walked away with like 100, and that was still pretty good after that weekend.
I mean, for ice cream, that's incredible.
That's just for ice cream. People will not tip for sandwiches. I could literally get them. I could prep 10 things for them. They could order half of the menu. Some people do not tip. And then somebody comes in and gets like $1 ice cream cone and they leave like a $10 tip. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like,
yes, unfortunately, I've seen that in almost every facet of this business over
Yeah.
the years. There are just some people that do not understand how to tip appropriately, and I will preach from that soapbox all day long because that is somebody's rent, that's somebody's food on their table, and that's somebody like taking care of their family, and that just bugs me. If you don't have the money to tip, don't go out to eat.
that bugs me too. Like I'm in a firm believer of like tipping. I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I only didn't tip like one time, but I have a reason. If you're willing to hear me out.
Okay, let's hear it.
So this was like when I was like 19 or 20, and it was a date night with me and my girlfriend at the time. And this waiter kept pushing us to buy wine, even though we told him we were underage.
Oh, no.
And then it gets worse. And then like a bunch of people got served before us. And then when our food came out, it was cold. And we asked him to bring it back. And he's just like, and it came back again, but it was more lukewarm. And we're like, all right, what's going on? And then the guy's like, oh, I'm just making sure it's not too hot for you guys. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Bring out the hot food. Like, I will gladly burn my tongue on this chicken Alfredo you got going on here. It was just bad. It was just like I literally paid the bill in cash. Like I just slapped it down and we just left. I told the manager, I'm like, hey, your guys trying to force minors to buy wine.
I think that's one instance where you could let that slide.
Yeah. It's just like, I'm going to let the tip slide. And he didn't even show us a full bottle of wine. It was like almost empty. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Then he came back with like a half bottle of wine. I'm like, come on, man. Like you're not, if you're going to sell alcohol to minors, just at least show the full bottle. Don't be like, hey, look, I got leftovers. I'm like, no, thank you.
I am absolutely fascinated now that you've mentioned a couple of items and dishes here and there. I want to know what a person eats growing up in upstate New York.
So people, the way I put it is like upstate New York has a lot of different food and stuff. It doesn't look like it because like people are like, oh, upstate New York is the same latitude as like Wisconsin. Like, what are you eating up there? And I'm like, pretty good, actually. I'm eating pretty good. The most famous thing from Syracuse is the salt potato. And for those who don't know, you can look this up. The salt potato is a tiny little potato where you cook it and boil it in like salt water. It's a really interesting process. And the potato actually holds a lot of the flavor of the salt in it too. And it's a great summertime dish. And you could just look around all around New York and just find different foods. Like Binghamton has a spiedie sauce, which they use for chicken spiedies. Rochester has garbage plates, and Buffalo, of course, is known for buffalo wings. So,
okay, what's a chicken spiedie?
So a spiedie is like another marinade sauce. It's not a barbecue one. I can't tell you all the flavors all the ingredients that go into it off the top of my head, but it a lot of this is like summertime food.
Sure.
Because upstate New York gets a lot of snow. In fact, Syracuse, and this is one of my bits, Syracuse is the snow capital of the United States. They get like 123 inches of snow per year. That's like the average. So when it's summertime, we cook a lot of really good food because we have like 3 months of really good weather, and that's it.
Right.
So it's like,
you're
why
like
do you have
fair weather foodies?
Yeah, because why is all this summer food? I'm like, because we have 3 good months of weather and the rest of it is just craps.
Yeah, it's the complete opposite. Here we have 9 months of summer, and 3 months of winter.
So I grew up with a lot of good food, and like also like, there's a lot of apple orchards and stuff, so a lot of baking goes on too. It's just there's a lot. Like the best way I tell people to try the food of like upstate New York, you got to go to like the New York State Fair and go there and try food because there's a lot of local food that happens there. and you could try all sorts of different things. And of course, there's the usual fare food, but there's also like local favorites too.
Do you have any favorites from when you were a kid, or did you ever cook with like a parent or a grandparent?
Like I tried to learn a little bit from everyone when I got older. Like, I learned mostly from my mom. My dad would do like some barbecue and stuff, but I would just sit down and just watch like sometimes my grandparents too. It's just like a lot of people cooked in my family. And so it made it like, I just wanted to learn how to cook when I got older and like in college and stuff. Cause I'm like, hey, I should learn how to take care of myself and know how to cook because they don't always teach you that in school. In fact, a lot of schools don't do that now.
Yeah, those programs are being cut out, same as arts and music, because
Hmm.
we're just losing sight of the importance of them. But man, like being able to cook for yourself and being self-sufficient is super important. But I think in a family like the one you're describing or anybody else's childhood, like just growing up and seeing other people being passionate about taking care of each other in that way is just, it really shapes your future.
Yeah, because like it's important because like my dad would really like to barbecue sometimes. So watching him prep the chicken for the grill or prep some burgers for the grill, and then my mom always like making mac and cheese. So watching her prep it because like one, it's going to be really good, but two, you kind of want to know how they're doing it too, and then eventually you just ask for recipes and stuff.
Yeah, there's a certain mystique there when you're a kid. You have no idea how it makes it to your plate, but it's kind of intriguing, I think.
Yeah. Like, even in, like, the slightest, like, I see it now with my, like, nieces and, nephews. It's just, they're watching my sister who was, like, has way more cooking experience than I do, but but she cooks a lot too, and she bakes a lot too, and her kids sometimes will just start watching her do it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's how some of the best like core memories are formed. Those are like really great experiences
Definitely.
for sure. Did you do food first and then comedy, or like how does one become the other?
So, like, the food thing was kind of, I don't wanna say it was, like, it wasn't necessary, but, like, it was the thing I could get a job on campus, and then it led to other
Hmm.
cooking opportunities, so the food came first. The comedy came mostly when I moved down here. Now, like, in college, I ran, like, a comedy sketch show, for my college TV station. I ran one of those. But then when I moved down to DC last year in 2020, I finally had a friendly schedule or a good enough schedule that's friendly for comedians. It wasn't great, but it's a lot better now than it was before because like I worked at a TV station and my days were like Thursday through Monday, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., which wasn't great to go out and do comedy late at night.
Right.
But, working in, like, kitchens and stuff, it taught me how to, like, manage my time and know what I needed to do ahead of time and what I could kinda slack off on. So the food came first, but the comedy is, like, the main product now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see that a lot of time in the industry, right? Like you will see that, hey, in college I was a bartender, or hey, while I was in school I waited tables. And I see people come through places where I've worked before as well, where they're cooks, but that's not exactly what they want to do. But sometimes it grows into a real love for it and they end up staying in the business, or they're using it to support, what they might affectionately call their day job or their
Yeah.
hobby or whatever their passion is. But definitely the hospitality industry is huge and it's got a lot of moving parts.
There's definitely like I've met a lot of people who worked in kitchens, who worked as bartenders, who done like catering events and stuff. So it's not uncommon for someone to start comedy and they're like, "Oh yeah, I used to wait tables at this restaurant in DC." And I'm like, "That's pretty cool actually."
Right. So how did you get your start in comedy?
So in 2022, I finally had a schedule where it's like I could go out and do comedy.
Hmm.
And on Valentine's Day last year, I is like when I went to an open mic, and then I decided at that point, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna stick with it. And if I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere, I'm not gonna keep doing it. But the more I did comedy, the better I got at it. It took a while, but once you get the ball rolling, uh, that's when you got to ride the momentum at that point. And now I'm at a point now where I'm starting to work on shows and stuff, which is really cool too. Like I just working on some projects now can't really talk about it because there's still a lot of murky
Sure.
details right now. But being able to start an open mic was a big deal because that's kind of a sign of like, you know what you're doing, but also you want to work on your stuff as well.
Right. I don't know anything about comedy except for I feel like it's one of those things that if you aren't good at it, you're going to find out really fast. Maybe if you're not meant to do it. Besides the fact that I think I'm funny, which is probably a sign that I'm not.
It's like, it's a weird thing because like some people are like, I think I'm funny enough to do it. I'm like, well, you won't know until you get up there. Because sometimes people get on stage and they'll surprise you like off stage because they could be really funny on stage and then you talk to them off. It's like, wow, you are not the person who was just up there. Who are you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely like not everybody's on all the time, Sometimes they could have to flip that switch.
Yeah. Like I had to flip that switch. Like I'm usually the funny guy at work. That's usually been me. It's just like, yeah, I'm the one slinging jokes around. That's usually me, or I have something cooking in my head for later or something. So it wasn't too much of a switch for me because people will talk to me afterwards and they're like, wow, you're still funny. And I'm like, yeah. But that's not the same for everyone else. But
That's the world's most backhanded compliment, though. Like, hey, you're still funny.
I'm like, you're still funny. I'm like, thanks. I'm off the stage now, so I don't have to hold my tongue. Like,
It's like when somebody sees me outside my chef clothes and they go, "Oh, you look nice." Cool.
cool, thanks. Yeah, like,
Cool, thanks.
It's really comedy's really interesting. It's very different from like a behind the scenes perspective because I don't think people realize how much work goes into comedy and stuff. Because my family will ask me, they're like, "Oh, so when are you going to do an hour special for Netflix?" I'm like, "That's really funny because I've been doing this for over a year now, and I've just mastered like a 10-minute set, which takes a lot of work." It's
No,
not.
I was gonna say like even a tight five probably has to for the audience. If you don't know, that's a 5-minute bit, but like that has to take at least days. I imagine you've got to work all those things out, make sure there's no dead ends, and like yeah, you have to practice it.
It takes months actually.
Sure.
Like, for your first good 5 minutes, it could take anywhere from like 6 months to a year just to get
Wow.
a really good 5 minutes like that to get starting to get booked.
Wow.
It took me a while before I even had like 2 good minutes of jokes. Like that was the you kind of have to start. It's like, let's just see if you can get to 5 minutes, then make the 5 minutes good. And then you kind of build on that. It's a building block. Because someone was like, oh, how come all these comedians don't release specials every year? Because they think that writing jokes are so easy. But when in the actuality, it takes me over a year to have a good 10-minute set. And if I need to cover like 55 minutes, that might take me, it might take me another 3 to 4 years before I have a good hour of material.
Yeah, I mean that's insane. And then even before or after it's a Netflix special, you need to tour it, right? And work it out.
Yep.
It take a long time.
It takes a long time, and it's a process. So it's more similar to baking than I think cooking actually, because like you kind of have to make sure all the ingredients are right. You're doing everything right. You're trying it out. Sometimes you will definitely mess up. You will bomb on stage, and then you kind of have to restart. But like once you get the exact science down, then it comes a little easier each time.
Yeah, baking for sure is definitely exact science, and it depends on the environment too, right? Just like for you, it's going to depend on the crowd.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's some audiences that are like, they're great. And I don't like to blame audiences, but sometimes once in a while you get a really cold audience who's just not warming up to you at all. And you got to fight through that. Like it no longer is a comedy show. It's now turned into Survivor. Like
It sounds terrible.
it's like I bombed a few times where it's just like, I just need to fill this time and get off stage.
The extent of the comedy that I will try to enact in the kitchen is typically me inserting funny and super appropriate to the moment movie quotes or other comedians bits, right? And they never really quite land because I'm about twice the age of my staff. So then it just makes me feel really sad.
Oh no.
I quote a movie and everybody's like, what? I'm like, well, I'm just going to go walk into the ocean now. Bye. See you later.
See ya. Bye. Hope you find your dad.
Hope you find your dad, buddy. Yes, exactly.
Look, if I do an Elf reference and somebody's like, "Oh, that movie," that's it. I'm done.
You're out.
Stop. I'm just gonna stop quoting movies. Be like,
You're
you know
out.
what? You don't appreciate art like I do.
That's awesome. I mean, who among us hasn't answered their phone? Buddy of the Elf, what's your favorite color?
I do it around Christmas time, but
Dude, it's awesome.
Then my family stops calling. They're like, you got to take this seriously. I'm like, no, absolutely not. I'm in the holiday spirit. I'm so sorry. Sorry, Jesus, that your birthday sucks.
I've probably lost count of the amount of times that I have walked through a crowded kitchen and gone like, we did it, guys. The world's best cup of coffee. Like after I get a cup of coffee, and it's just, it never lands. It never, ever lands. But my personal philosophy is that if you laugh at yourself, then that's enough. It probably doesn't put food on your table though.
No, like I'm fortunate not to rely on comedy for all my income, like because it's like, yeah, you can laugh at yourself, but you still have like 8 more minutes to get through. It's like that's the thing about comedy. Is like you can laugh at yourself, but you can't do it on stage. Like unless something's really funny. Like if the whole audience is laughing and you're laughing too, like that's fine. It's another thing where you're laughing at yourself and nobody's laughing with you. It's just like, what?
So, I don't know where this conversation will go, but that's one of my biggest pet peeves about Jimmy Fallon is that he thinks he's way too funny and he laughs at himself before he's even done telling a joke. And that bugs me.
And he gets away with it because he's Jimmy Fallon. And
of course,
he has a stature, like it's Jimmy Fallon. That's his style. Like he's
it's like one of his quirks and the audiences will just take it. But I watch it and I go like, dude, please stop.
Yeah, definitely.
Please stop. Nobody else is laughing.
And that's a big thing too. It's like, I don't really see that in like stand-up comedy like that. Like you see it at like open mics with like newer comics who are like, oh, this is so funny. And then they finish telling the joke and they ruin the setup and the punchline because they kept laughing through their own joke. And it's like,
that's terrible.
Yeah, but they don't realize it. So you just let them do it. Oh, you're going to learn. You're going to learn today.
It sounds super cringy to watch.
Oh, it is. I've seen quite a few. It's even worse when someone's like, I don't know what you guys are talking. Why aren't you guys laughing? That's super funny. It killed with my friends. It's like, find some new friends.
Your friends were being your friends. They were I don't know. They were telling you what you want to hear.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's some things like you can like joke about or joke in a style that like works with your friends, but it won't work on stage.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Well, that's I equate that to when you have a dinner with family and friends and they go, you should open a restaurant. Well, there's a lot to be said for whether or not you actually have the talent to do that.
That's a lot.
Or whether or not you just, made a good dinner that one time.
It's like, you should go into business. I'm like, let's think about this after the wine's worn off.
Yeah, Zach drank too much underage wine. Now he thinks he could make the world's best hoagie chicken spiedie.
Oh yeah.
I gotta go look all these things up. So I'm from Dallas, where we kind of say that we're from the South when it's convenient. Yeah, exactly. When it's convenient, but we're a little bit too cosmopolitan to be considered the South. So the food culture here is kind of just a hot mess. But definitely some of those things, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm just fortunate to live in areas that have really good food and been to places that have really good food. Like, people don't think of upstate New York as like a food hub or anything, but it really is. There's a lot of good food there. And then I moved down to DC and there's so many food options down here. Like there's stuff I couldn't get back at home that is down here. Like,
yeah, absolutely. The restaurant scene in DC is insane.
It's fantastic. It's also very expensive. So I don't,
yes, it is.
I don't partake in a lot of stuff, But like DC has a lot of really good spots too. I've also been to New York City. I've been to Ireland before and had food over there. That was fantastic.
Man, I love it. Those are my people.
Everybody's like, Ireland has food? I thought they're potato
It's just
people. And I'm like, yeah,
Guinness. It's a whole meal.
yeah. Guinness is, somebody described me as Guinness as just being a drinkable loaf of bread. And I hate that comparison, but they're so right sometimes.
That's really not that far off.
It's not that far off. It's just like the Guinness in Ireland tastes a lot better, so it goes down a lot quicker.
Of course, and then you don't need food once you've had enough Guinness.
No, like you just get some fries or some chips, as they call it, and then you're fine. It's like, yeah, let's just load up this bread with some chips, eh? Oh wait, that's Canadian. I'm messing it up, but
Oh man, you're all over the place now.
I am.
But to your point, to your point, I think that food culture is where you find it. So in the least expected and most uncommon places, if you're really looking for it and willing to get outside your comfort zone, you can find it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like I said, DC is like a huge like food scene here. So you get able to find stuff too. And like some of the venues I go to for like just open mics and stuff have really great food. But sometimes you go to a comedy venue and they have really terrible food. And that sometimes you're going to a McDonald's at 2 a.m. because the place you were just at has terrible food.
Okay, McDonald's. Are you a McRib guy or not? I have to know.
So I tried the McRib because I hadn't have it in years, and they're like, "Oh, it's the last time," and I'm like, "Sure, why not? I'll eat the McRib." And about halfway through the McRib, I was regretting every single bite, but I finished it because I paid too much for Uber Eats. It was just like, I'm like, I gotta eat this. Like,
Well, regret is one of the seasonings in the McRib, so I'm not surprised.
I'm not either. I'm like, why doesn't anybody like the McRib? And then I eat it. I'm like,
I have a love relationship with that sandwich. It's really good, and I hate that I love it, but I also love that I hate it. It's kind of fun, but yeah, it's yummy sometimes.
Yeah, that was like, I'm just glad it went. I'm just like, thank goodness, like it's over. After eating the last one, I'm like, yeah, you're past your prime. Like it's like Michael Jordan playing on the Wizards. It's just like, you are way past your prime. You are not as good as you used to be.
Affectionately around here, I will tell everybody that I don't do much sportsing, but I think I understand that reference.
Yeah, Michael Jordan, the very famous, considered one of the best players of all time, known for playing for Chicago, but in like 2000 and 2001 played for the Washington Wizards because they were so bad that he was like, you know what? I could do better than some of these guys.
Did it work?
I don't think they won. They didn't win anything. So I don't know how the record improved. It was just very weird. You can look it up, just Michael Jordan in a Wizards jersey. And it's just a weird thing to look at.
Wow.
You don't even have to be a big sports person. If you know Michael Jordan and then you look him up in a Wizards jersey, it just looks wrong.
It sounds wrong because I've just never heard those two words in a sentence.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize
Together.
that. It's like one of those very obscure sports facts about like some of the greatest athletes of all time.
All right, well, if I come to DC, if I'm up there for a weekend, like, where are you taking me to eat? What is the must-have?
Oh my God. I'm running through all the places. There are so many. There's a lot of options.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
You put me on the spot, but it's fine.
Okay, best bar food. Maybe that'll narrow it down.
Best bar food. There is a bar that hosts an open mic every Tuesday called Hamilton's Bar and Grill. It's right by Capitol Hill, and everything on their menu just hits. Like, I've had just about everything on that menu at this point in time. It is like it's a local bar and grill. You could literally, I don't want to say throw a stone at the Capitol because who knows who's listening to this, but it's so close. Like, you walk down the street.
I was going to say, like, I don't think this is that podcast, but like,
no,
okay.
I'm not encouraging, but it's really close because my frame of reference is like, I could throw something at it. It's that close. I'm like, you could throw a stone at the Capitol, but
that's rough.
Then all of a sudden,
easy.
Capitol Police come out again, and they're like, not again. Hamilton's Bar and Grill has some of the best bar food I've had in DC. It's not the only spot. Like the place I run my open mic at, which is Type 5 Pub, which is not a comedy pub, by the way. It's a rugby bar.
Wow.
Yeah. Who knew that rugby players and comedians had one term in one phrase in common? They have really good bar food. There, another one I like going to is Penn Quarter Sports Tavern is another one. There's a lot of good bar food. There's also a lot of bad bar food too, but I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about good bar food.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. In every city, I've got a local place just like Hamilton's here in Dallas called Good Friends. Shout out to them, where I've had every single thing on the menu and never gone wrong once.
Nope. I even tried the new stuff because at Hamilton's they started this new thing like a month ago. They have like a steak Caesar wrap, and I just had that.
Golly, that sounds really good right now.
It really good. So my usual order for there is a chicken Caesar wrap with sweet potato fries, and I do ranch on the side, so I can dunk the sweet potato fries in there.
Nice. So running the open mic, or where you're doing like the comedy sets and then obviously doing your own sets, are you always eating super early in the morning, like late at night, 1, 2 in the morning?
So it depends. So like if I'm doing my open mic, I try to eat before because I know that from like doing kitchens and stuff, you get your food before if you're gonna stay late, or because like I worked late shifts and it's like, oh, I better eat before we get started. Like everything's already prepped. I'm gonna eat my food now before everything.
Yeah, and nothing will be open when you get off.
Exactly. Like the only things that are open is the 4 McDonald's I pass on my way back to my place.
Can you throw stones at them?
Yes, absolutely. I've driven by them so much I could probably do it without looking at this point. Or throw a McRib at them and be like, it sucks. Yeah, but like it's weird because like I talk with comedians who do a lot more touring than I do, and sometimes they'll go and do a gig and they'll do like multiple shows in the night, but the venue won't have food sometimes, so they're not always eating like when they need to. So they'll be doing. I know this one headliner. He told me he's like I did a whole set starving because like there was no food or anything. And I've seen cases where like people get Uber Eats delivered to their like green rooms and stuff too because there's no food.
Well, that's smart.
Yeah, it's not cost effective, but it's smart. Like it's just like comedy puts you in a weird spot because like you either got to eat really early or you got to eat if there's food at the venue. You got to hope it's good food because sometimes it's a gamble. And it doesn't always work out, and then other times it's like there's no food available, and then you're at the mercy of whatever's open at like 1 or 2 in the morning.
It's all the same stuff around here. It's all fast food is the only things that are open.
It's always fast food, and like you can't even. I couldn't even go into like a 7-Eleven to get a bag of chips. It's like, well, I guess it's just McDonald's at this point.
Yeah, I mean, after COVID, a lot of things that were 24 hours like stopped being open for 24 hours. I really can't even imagine. I'm blessed to work at a place where we're not open very late, but man, back in the day, I was shutting down kitchens. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and it was only Jack in the Box was like my only option.
Right.
It was just I probably ate my weight in it in 2017, I think 2016.
Yeah, it was like McDonald's. I try not to eat there a lot. Like I might eat there like once a month now, which has gotten a lot better on my end because it's like I don't want to eat a lot of fast food and stuff. I've been eating healthier. I've actually been losing weight because of how
good for you.
Healthy. I mean, I started the year at like 317. Now I'm down to 301. So I've lost like 16 pounds since the start of the year.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I've been exercising too, but it's mostly been my diet I've changed because like before I would go grocery shopping and just grab all these like ready to eat stuff because I wouldn't have a lot of time. But now I just budget my time better and realize when I'm just doing too much comedy and not spending enough time at home cooking and stuff.
Right. I mean, I think that's one thing working in a kitchen or anywhere in the service industry is going to teach you for sure is how to manage your time and how to multitask. You just don't have a choice, and you're either get really good at it or you'll always be bad at it.
Yeah. So I've learned, one, not to overstack my schedule, but two, learn how to multitask. So if I'm cooking before I get to head to a mic or a show or something, I'm multitasking. So if I put something in the oven's still warming up, I'm running back to my room to change into clothes and then running back out to put the food in and then managing all this stuff. It's like, all right, I have like 20 minutes. Let's start cooking the rice and stuff.
Right. I mean, it's the same. It's no different in a kitchen, right? Like you always want the items to be waiting on you and not the other way around.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a delicate balancing act. I think, as women who have our daughters, right? Like we've probably experienced this around Thanksgiving. Like it's this delicate, refrigerator Tetris type kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
chaos that looks really smooth, from the outside, but there's 1,000 things going on and they just have to be choreographed just right or the whole thing doesn't work.
Yeah, because I've had times where it's like I miss something by like a minute, or I forget to put something on, and then it's just like, well, now I'm just wasting time at this point because I didn't quite catch it. And or sometimes somebody might call, or I get an important message, and then I'm responding to that, and then I'm like, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, did I stir that? Oh no! It's one
There's
of those.
nothing worse than the feeling like when something's burnt, it's tiny little alarm bells that go off in your head, and then that simultaneous like feeling of dread.
Yeah, I mostly burn toast, which I'm like okay with sometimes, but then there's other times it's like, oh, I put it back in too long.
I like burnt toast sometimes, I guess. I don't know.
I don't. I like mine's like this like lightly roasted to like more of that golden crisp. Like anything past that, and I'm like, it's burnt.
So you basically just want it warm enough to melt butter.
I want it warm enough and like crunchy enough, but not burnt enough. I don't want that smoky flavor with my toast.
You could call it charred. I mean, you could charge a lot of money for it.
Yeah, especially down here in the new thing in DC is charred bread, well seasoned.
It's Cajun blackened.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's Cajun blackened. It's magic.
Where's the Cajun part? Well, we're working on it.
It's blackened.
Yeah,
we coated this bread with blackening seasoning, which is basically just paprika and sugar, cayenne, and we burnt the crap out of it, but we're using fun words to charge more money because that's what chefs do.
I've definitely been to some of those places where it's just like, oh, you're overcharging for crap. Thanks for letting me know. Like, I'm like, I don't know if you have like any immediate red flags when you walk into like a place to eat or something, but if I see like fake grass as your wall, I'm not going to enjoy the food. Like,
yeah,
it's going to be bad.
I think that's a giveaway. Wall water features, I'm not a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like, I read something online where it's like, oh, this one guy shared a secret with knowing if the kitchen's going to be good or bad. And his secret was just like, oh, I go into the bathroom and just see if the bathroom's clean. And I'm like, that, if you worked in any restaurant, you would have already known that. Like,
yeah, absolutely. It's really not the guest bathroom you should be looking at. You got to go look at the employee bathroom.
Yeah. Like
that's where the real information lives.
Yeah. And if the guest bathroom's already bad enough, like I don't even bother. Like I remember there was one place in DC I went to. My friends are eating the food. I didn't order anything. And they're like, why didn't you order anything? I'm like, because the guest bathrooms are disgusting right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to see the employee bathroom. And I quite honestly, I don't think I should be drinking the water here. Like, I don't know what is clean.
If I feel like I need to ready reference my shot records to just exist in a place, much less get a plate of food, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out.
I'm just like, I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard.
It's worse when I walk into a place and see the grass walls and then I see like a very dirty bathroom and I'm like, what is going on? Pick a struggle, please. You can only have one. You can either just have a very basic concept for girls to take pictures on Instagram or have a dirty bathroom. You cannot have both.
You can't have both. That's right. If you're going to have fake plastic grass on the wall, please clean the toilets.
Yeah. Because like if you could afford to put fake plastic grass on your walls and count it as wallpaper, basically, you should be able to clean your bathroom. Like
100%. You can afford a bottle of Lysol.
Yes, you absolutely. Lysol wipes. You can afford, Mr. Clean.
What's bleach? $2? $2 for a gallon?
Exactly.
The off-brand. Okay, since you're a comedian, I have to try out a bit on you. Are you ready?
I am ready.
This is my favorite kitchen joke, okay? What is the difference between mashed potatoes and whipped potatoes?
Ooh. What is it?
$3. I got him.
Well, this has been fantastic.
He's like, and I'm out. Bye.
And I'm out. Man, I thought you were gonna say something like consent, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Oh no.
Wrong one.
It's the other podcast.
Oh, wrong one. Oh, that's what you meant.
Exactly.
Oh, that food
Exactly.
for thought. Never mind.
It's the other food for thought. For food for bad thoughts.
They're always fun thoughts.
Yeah. Some bad thoughts are fun thoughts.
Exactly.
Like, what would happen if I dropped this ice cube in a fryer? It's those intrusive thoughts.
I think I had a friend send me that meme where it's like, I don't get it, and it's like a whole basket full of ice over a fryer, and I'm like, oh my god, you got a bomb.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my god, who did you tick off?
I watched a guy do that on his way out once when he was walking off the job.
I thought about that once. I'm like, I could do it. I could do it right now. I'm left alone. The walk-in freezer's over there. I could go grab it. I know where the ice maker is. It's like, yo, we're really gonna have a fun time. I remember working at the deli, and there was someone who was like a younger person there. I say younger person, like I'm not young myself, but like a teenager who was working there. And she's like, oh, what happens if I accidentally throw ice cubes or ice into the fryer? And I'm like, do not, under any circumstances, put ice into the fryer, please.
That's like the classic, what happens if I push this red button? Don't push the red button.
Don't push the red button. Because she was just asking, because like, I guess like some of the ice that built up inside the bag got into it, and it just made a little bit more extra noise. And I'm like, sure. And I just told him, like, don't do it. That's why we have the silver fire extinguisher there. And I'm like, that's the special one for this fryer, because if you put a bunch of ice cubes and try to do fried ice, you're going to find out really quick.
So I'm going to guess that like fried ice will never be a New York State Fair seasonal item.
That won't stop people from trying, though. I'm telling you right now, give up on fried ice. And if you do give up on it, it's not going to be the next bougie thing. Like, please stop.
So the next restaurant you go into that has the fake grass on the wall, they might try to have like fried ice on the menu.
We have fried ice, and I'm like, I'm leaving.
No, you're like, I'm leaving.
Look, I'm very open-minded, but this is where I put my foot down.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. What was there any like funniest thing that ever happened to you while you were working in those kitchens?
I remember this one time when I was working in the dining hall in college. It was like breakfast or whatever, and somebody's like making like ordered eggs. So like people would be able to like, there was like a little sheet that you fill out and hand it over to the person making the eggs.
Sure.
And it was like this, I think it was this person's second time doing the eggs, not the first time. Because on the first time you're super nervous, on the second time you're super cocky, and that's where the fun happens.
Right.
So she's like, I think I can flip this egg, and I'm like, I bet you cannot. And not only did she flip the egg, she flipped it right into the ceiling, and it came right back down.
Oh, that is awesome.
It wasn't a very high ceiling, but I was just very impressed. I was laughing. I'm like, that is very impressive.
Did she at least catch it?
No, she did not. Well, she caught it with her uniform, but that was it. Because she was trying to catch it, and it just ended up just on her shirt, and it's just like, you got to wear it now. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
it's the worst scarlet letter ever. Just have to wear the rest of the crap-fied egg from the ceiling.
Shame.
Shame.
Is that asbestos on the egg? Shame.
Why is there egg yolk on the ceiling tile? We do not ask.
We don't ask silly questions. That was like the funniest thing too, because she was so cocky about it. She's like, I'm gonna flip this egg, and I'm like, do it. Come on, you won't do it. She's like, I'm doing it right now. I'm like, no, because the egg is still on the grill. Like,
was she flipping it out of like a nonstick pan or like off of a griddle?
It was off like I want to say it was like a griddle. It's like one of those like grills. I think it was a griddle. So it was just like, she was just flipping it. She was doing little flips, and it was like.
So she flipped it with a spatula onto the ceiling?
It's not a very high ceiling.
I see. But still though, like, yeah, that's some torque. Like, She'd take a running start.
Like, and she was like doing little flips. I'm like, no, flip it. Like, come on. We heard you talking. You were talking smack. Now it was like 4 of us too watching this. I was like, you got to flip it now.
I feel like everybody that's been in the business was like that cocky beginner line cook at some point, or like just kind of entry level. And man, it really comes back to bite you.
It bites you really quick. Unfortunately, she didn't do it again after that point. She's like, we're like, so you're going to flip any more eggs? She's like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, that's what we thought.
Yeah. It becomes like Fight Club after that.
Yeah,
Everybody knows it
exactly.
happens, but nobody's allowed to talk about it.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. Zach, it was an absolute pleasure having you on today. Where can everybody find you and your awesome comedy online?
So you can follow me on Instagram. It is at _comic Zans. And you could also use that to find me on Twitter and TikTok as well. And also I'm on YouTube as Zakary Haines as well. I post a lot of my shows and stuff like that on my Instagram and all that social media feed. So that's a place to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope that all the listeners can check out Zach's comedy if you're ever in the Metro DC area. And, you know, we'll be looking for you when your first Netflix special drops and when you do your nationwide tour. But there's no doubt in my mind that there is a definite link between comedy and cuisine.
Thank you for having me on.
That's a wrap for today. Until the next episode of the Food for Thoughtcast, make good food, eat good food, share it, and be kind to one another.
Thanks so much for listening today. You are part of what makes us special, and we are so glad you joined us. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. Just like food, delicious podcasts are better when you share them with others. Come back for seconds wherever podcasts are served, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Food for Thoughtcast.
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at the Food for Thoughtcast or at www.foodforthoughtcast.com, where you can link to all podcast players, or you can send us an email at foodforthoughtcmc@gmail.com.